Hello everyone, I am UnsungNPC. Do you like to, perchance, duel like a gentleman? Or maybe shiv someone really quick in the back? If so, then this is the guide for you, because we're going to be looking at feats for Dex-based melee fighters. And that's duelist, shivers, and people that like to do two weapons while doing either of those things. So here we go. The first thing we want to talk about is good classes to pick for these types of builds. Now, I want to preface this by saying you can go with anything that your heart desires. Alright, there are some really creative builds out there, and I think it's fun to explore and try new different things. I'm showing you what I personally would go for just because these classes tend to make it a little bit easier for these builds. But if you really want to give yourself a creative challenge, definitely go for something a little more out of the box. First, we're going to start up with the one that everyone knows and talks about, the Vivisectionist. Now, there are going to be lots of people that tell you to dip into this every now and then to get the sneak attack or something like that and the mutagen, but like honestly, ruining your base attack bonus progress and missing out on like higher level powers for your class to take a couple or one level of Vivisectionist and just to get a sneak attack and mutagen is not worth it, in my opinion. I'm not an optimized builder. I've said this in various videos. I don't play that way. I play for fun. I play to see cool powers come to life on the screen, and I play for roleplay ability. So if you can make it work for you, awesome. I'm not a fan, but Vivisection is a great class in general under the Alchemist for this type of build because of the sneak attacking, the mutagen, and the different discoveries you can get that kind of, can beef up your character a little bit. So something to consider there. Bard Archaeologist, honestly, underrated class. One of my favorite classes because this Archaeologist luck is a fantastic little bonus that gets better as you go. Like being able to have a performance that's just for your benefit, essentially, is really freaking cool. And I think that paired with the Bard talents and the clever and confident explorer, there's just like these make a great skill monkey / melee combatant. And I think they are wonderful and super fun to play, especially if you go with Halfling, because being able to stack the Halfling luck bonus is a pretty fun little thing to do when you're playing this type of character. So, I love it. Inquisitors. I recommended these for ranged characters as well, but I think they can also make a good Shiv characters. Or good dueling characters, and like just the judgments are just so beneficial for any kind of class of Inquisitor that you want to do, however you want to play them. So I think those are also great options. For a duelist, fighter, Aldori defender, things like that are really great to do if you want to be more of a defensive duelist. So those are great avenues, and they're great pathways into getting into some of the prestige classes on this list. Magus, Sword Saint, another one of my faves. Fantastic duelist character, one-handed weapon, being able to use magic and just getting so much prowess with the single sword. It's incredible. The abilities on this are fantastic. I totally recommend it. Ranger, people always think these are ranged characters, but actually, you pick a combat style feat. So Ranger can really be whatever you want it to be. So this is also a good option. Especially if you go like Flame Warden or something like that. Just being able to, ignite your weapon on flame is pretty dope. Rogue is the obvious choice. Rogue, Eldritch Scoundrel, Knife Master, Thug. Knife Master is super awesome. Just using knives, turning your sneak attack into D8s instead of D6s is incredible. Slayer, also a great option for any combatant character, no matter what style you're playing. So those are always options that I'd recommend. Alright, so for stats. Dexterity is key here. If you're making a dex-based fighter build, you need dexterity, right? So dexterity, I think, is the key thing. I think whatever else you want to work on is up to you. I think some people like to go intelligence for skills, or if they want to become a duelist and get or a sword saint magus and get the points for your AC through intelligence. Those are great options. Charisma can also be really cool. If you want to go a more dazzling display, Aladori master type character, those are awesome builds. For skills, I think whatever makes the most sense to you. Most of these types of classes don't get a ton of skill points, so except for like Rogue and Bard, obviously. So with Rogue and Bard, you can kind of do whatever you want, but for other ones, if you're more fighter than anything else, then kind of just picking what makes sense in terms of what you want points in, what is a class skill for you to get those bonus points, and what you already have a good stat for. I wouldn't waste any time putting anything into strength at all, because unlike like ranged combat, I said in that video, you can get strength bonus for certain weapons, but for dex-based melee fighters, I feel like there's feats that get you dex bonus damage and all of that, so you don't really need any strength at all for these types of builds. Speaking of feats, why else are we here? Let's go. So, weapon finesse is a must-have. There are some classes that let you start with this ability. I think, yeah, Rogue, you get to start with weapon finesse. I don't think Mage's Sword Saint starts with weapon finesse. But you do start with weapon focus, which is key there. So those are some different ways to deal with that. Okay. So, yeah, so weapon finesse, fantastic feat if you don't start with it already. If you do, weapon focus is the next thing you want to do. These are always the first two you want to get for any dex-based melee build. Weapon finesse and weapon focus, however you can get them. Because the only way to get... There are two feats. There's Fencing Grace, which lets you do dexterity damage with piercing one-handed weapons, and then there's Slashing Grace, which does the same thing but for slashing weapons. To get both of those, you need weapon finesse and weapon focus in your chosen weapon, and then you can take these feats for that weapon, and that will get you dexterity damage instead of strength damage, which is key in making a dex melee combatant build. So the sooner you can rush those, the better off you'll be, for sure. Other feats to look at here, I think you can really go with lots of things. I think some certain AC feats like armor focuses or dodge or anything like that can be cool. Improved initiative is nice. If you have sneak attack in kind of like an off sneak attack kind of way, so like Slayers and Alchemist, Vivisectionist don't get well, actually, never mind. Just Slayers. Just Slayers. If you're a Slayer, I would 100% take Accomplished Sneak Attacker, because you're not going to get as much sneak attack as a Slayer than you would as a Rogue or a Vivisectionist. So I think getting that feat will be crucial in being able to stack up your sneak attack, so you'll only be 3 away from what you could be instead of 4. So Accomplished Sneak Attacker is a great one to have there, for sure. Another good one is Combat Reflexes. Being able to make additional attacks of opportunity based on your dex bonus is awesome, especially since you're a high dex character, right? So just being able to just like cha-cha at the people running away from you is awesome. Pairing that with something like Dazzling Display or anything else that can make someone cause attacks of opportunity is great. Um, there's another one, Trip. If you get Trip and you're able to trip people, then you can get a feat called Fury's Fall, where you get to use your dex in your base attack and your combat maneuver bonus to trip someone, which is awesome because then you can use dex for that and tripping people, and then when they get back up, they cause attacks to opportunity. So then you use your combat reflexes multiple times in a round there. I think another one, agile maneuvers, being able to add dexterity to your combat maneuver. Yeah, it's for your combat maneuver bonus. So agile maneuvers is for all of the different maneuvers, and then Fury's Fall is just for tripping. So if you just want to focus on tripping, Fury's Fall is great. If you want to focus on other ones, agile maneuvers is a fantastic feat as well, for sure. I would say if you want to make a more defensive dex-based combat character, combat mobility is great. Just being able to add +4 to your armor against attacks or opportunity as you maneuver around. That can also just be good for sneaky rogues who for some reason can't go invisible at a certain time. You can get across the battlefield a lot faster that way without having to take all those hits, so that's a great one to have. I would say the critical focus, improved critical, weapon focus, weapon specialization, all of those weapon oriented feats are fantastic no matter what kind of combatant you're doing, as long as it's not just a spellcaster. So I think those are great to take for those types of characters. For sure. And then any spare feats you have, especially combat feats, you can go with different things here. Most of the feats you're taking are combat feats, right? So if you have bonus combat feats, saving those for them the best you can is cool, and using other feats for other things like skill feats or something like that would be great. Hammer the Gap, 2-weapon fighting, and greater 2-weapon fighting, and improved 2-weapon fighting. All 4 of those make an incredible character because 2-weapon fighting, improved, and greater are just as necessities if you're making a 2-weapon character. Double the shiv, right? So doing any of that, having all 3 of those is great. Adding in Hammer the Gap, where you're just getting damage based on the amount of successful hits in a row you're taking, is fantastic because that means your damage is increasing as you stab and stab and stab, which is a whole lot of fun, in my opinion. So having like a Hammer the Gap build or a Trip build is pretty great for these types of characters, and those are definitely feats that I would suggest for these types of characters as well. Yeah. So that's what I would focus on for these dex-based fighters. It's a lot about weapon specialization and then picking out what kind of maneuver or what kind of thing you're trying to do. Are you trying to trip people nonstop? Are you trying to stab as much and as hard as you can? Are you trying to have the most attacks you can? Anything like that. Is something that you need to identify early on if you can, and then focus in on it. But a lot of these types of builds are just weapon specialization builds, and you can get crazy high ACs on a lot of them too, but I always find it hard to focus on AC and damage, so I try to focus on damage and then having a kind of high AC if you don't have anything else to help you not get attacked. But if you're like a rogue attacking from behind, you really don't have to worry that much about it. So I've made rogue characters where they never get hit because no one's trying to hit them because they're just sneaking around and stabbing people in the back most of the time. So it works out for you in the end anyway. But this is what I recommend for these types of characters. there's a lot more you can do, obviously, with different classes, and I want to dive into these classes in future videos, rather than in this video, which is just for the feats. But hopefully you've learned something about the feats for this. I know the feats can be overwhelming and it's a lot to take in, and it's very hard to know which feats are you supposed to do just by looking at the title a lot of the time, and they don't categorize them in any way, which is a feature that I would love to have because it's a lot. But hopefully this video cleared some things up for you and made it easier to pinpoint which kind of feats you want to focus on yourself. And if you are interested in anything strength-based or spellcasting or ranged attacking builds, I have videos for those as well. If you're interested in learning more about the basics and mechanics of this game as a whole, there's a video for that as well. Keep an eye out for the class videos coming out soon, hopefully. And I hope that you gained a new, fresh perspective on some of these things, or maybe just reaffirmed some things you were thinking already if you're not a new player. If you are a new player, I hope this was helpful to you so that you can kind of get an idea of how you want to build your Dex combat character. And welcome to the greatest CRPG of all time, in my opinion. And keep an eye out, guys, for Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous that is coming out soon, right around the corner. It's going to be awesome. It's just going to be more of this, but better, and I'm super excited for it, and I will catch you guys in the next video.